Ever think about why BRYAN KOHBERGER waived his right to extradition in Pennsylvania and went as quickly as possible to Moscow, Idaho? When you're innocent, you're innocent. You don't hide behind things. You step up to the plate and you fight the good fight. You make it as easy as possible to eradicate all charges. But when people stack unfair actions against you, it makes it very, very hard. But everything done in the dark will come to light. BRYAN KOHBERGER has spent the last 18 months behind confinement, and most people do not understand that the process that is happening is BRYAN KOHBERGER is fighting for his life, but I see now that the prosecution also is fighting for legitimacy of putting BRYAN KOHBERGER behind bars. Malicious prosecution is a thing. Putting somebody who's innocent behind bars is a thing. Manufacturing evidence against somebody is a thing. So I'm not saying that's what happened, allegedly, but let's talk about it. Welcome to Twisted Tales of True Crime. Hi, I'm Deborah. On some of my social media platforms, I'm known as auntteadee, but here you can just call me Deborah. You know, it's been a while since this case started. Almost approximately, I believe, around 18 months that BRYAN KOHBERGER has been in jail. And he was desperate to get back to Moscow, Idaho, so that he could exonerate himself from all of these charges. A lot of people made a big deal out of him using the word exonerated because exonerated term is kind of the term that they say you use when you've already been prosecuted and successfully, sentenced. And then you are exonerated when they find out the charges are bogus or don't apply to you. But nevertheless, that's the issue, or rather the simplicity explanation for it. But in this particular hearing, I wanted to bring back or take us back to when there was supposed to be a preliminary hearing, but BRYAN KOHBERGER and his attorney they were ambushed into thinking that they were going to be able to go through a preliminary hearing, be able to talk through all the evidence, and be able to make his case for why they have the wrong person. That opportunity was stolen from them because the prosecutor went ahead and put this evidence in front of a grand jury, which is his right, to prosecute, speed up the process to begin putting BRYAN KOHBERGER on trial. If you ask me, I don't think the prosecutor at that time had enough evidence, but I think that this was a pressure tactic. If you look at this video, the body language, BRYAN KOHBERGER, yes, he is probably feeling a million and one different things, but he is calm, He is cool. He is collected in the courtroom setting. I noticed that from this particular video, probably the reason why they stopped having the outside people put mainstream media photograph Bryan Kohberger was because of all these crazy close-ups that they were doing here. It's just ridiculous. You know, in this country, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. And I think that when we were in the beginning of this, we didn't know as much as we know now. And a lot of people may say, we know a lot. Yeah, we do. We know a lot more than what we knew then. But throughout this course, the evidence that the prosecution had to, had in hand, there was great hopes that he had a lot of evidence. Look at the prosecution right now in the courtroom. He's sitting back, rocking, looking over, glancing at Bryan Kohberger like he just caught this big mouse. We all wanted him to have found and caught the person who actually did this heinous murder, because the largest part of the economic stability in that region is that university. So it was imperative that they find somebody to who's done this crime, so the community will feel safe, so it protects their economic base. And I believe that that was what largely drove this particular investigation. There are parallels in other situations where people are trying to speculate on who could have possibly have done this. The job of the defense, the job of Ann Taylor, is to protect Bryan Kohberger's rights, and also not only just Bryan Kohberger's rights, but us, all of our rights. We don't want to set some type of precedent in a trial case that that other attorneys or prosecutors can use and say that they take away our rights. And so looking back on this, this was the moment where the prosecution supposedly presented good evidence in front of the grand jury that proves that Bryan Kohberger, not necessarily beyond a shadow of a doubt, but has something to do with murder, and had an absolute something to do with murdering all four of these students, or shall I say unaliving. People say you can't say murder, but I'm sorry. That's what it was. Those four adults, young adults, were unalived in the prime of their life. I just want to bring everyone back to the moment where Bryan Kohberger stood silent and acknowledged also the charges.
Mr. Kohberger, do you understand the charge in count 1, murder?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 2, murder in the first degree?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 3, murder in the first degree?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 4, murder in the first degree?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 5, murder in the first degree? Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
And Ms. Taylor, is Mr. Kohberger prepared to plead to these charges?
Your Honor, we will be standing silent.
And because Mr. Kohberger is standing silent, I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on each charge, counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, at this juncture, the state has 60 days to give notice of intention to seek the death penalty, and Mr. Kohberger has a constitutional and statutory right to a speedy trial.
The other week, Corporal Payne was on the witness stand, and he was discussing how he came into the CAS data, what he did with it, his role as the lead detective. You know, after listening to his testimony, I realized that Payne and the prosecutor got played. The reason why I say that, there's two major theories that are out there about what could have possibly happened to these four beautiful adults, young adults. One scenario is that the fraternities are involved. Another narrative is drugs could be involved, and those drugs could have possibly been a hit because the two of the victims' parents or stepmother, which is Xana Knodl's mom and Maddie's stepmother, took a plea deal and they had lessened their time. But I think it was an opportunity. Somebody took an opportunity to advance their ability to negotiate with the police, and they were more than happy because they didn't want to go the route of pursuing really someone that was associated with the frat or the fraternity, because then if they pursued that avenue, they would lose lots of revenue and stuff. So I really do actually believe that in the background, the reason why they pursue BRYAN KOHBERGER has a lot to do with the drug scene that's out there. One of the biggest problems is you can't do what you do on the streets. See, cops in the process of investigating, they can lie. But you can't lie to get a search warrant. And you can't lie on papers that you put in court. So these magic words that really absolutely have no backing, that's the reason why Ann Taylor got both the detectives on record to say what they did. Let's talk about this part of it.
The number you associated with BRYAN KOHBERGER.
Right.
Okay. After you put those call detail records in, do you have to do anything with cell towers?
With the AT&T, no, because the cell tower locations are in the AT&T CPR.
Okay. So you put that record in, the tower locations are already part of the call detail record that you put in?
Yes.
Is that something that you have electronic on your computer and then you open your Cashapp program and just import it into the program?
Yes, AT&T provides both PDF and text documents of the file, and I use the text document to put into Cashapp to edit adjust.
And when you do that, what gets exported?
Nothing. At that point, nothing is exported or created that I know of.
Right here, Ann is trying to make sure she gets into the record his level of competency when it comes to these logs. Later, you'll come to see that he says that he did not destroy the logs. He just captured the clips with snippet. It's a tool, just does a screenshot, and he gets out of the tool. He doesn't want to admit that he destroyed the evidence, because that's what it is. He destroyed the evidence without saying it on the stand, because that's the end result.
You export the session that you're working on?
You can export a session log, yes.
Did you do that?
No.
How did you create screenshots?
By using the built-in Windows snip tool, as well as the built-in Windows game console, or they call it the game bar, which is just accessed by hitting Windows G, that allows you to record your screen.
It is painfully clear that the data was manipulated. There's no other reason why you need to use a outside snippet tool or some type of screen capture of that. And you can, I'm sure the tool had that image that they could have just printed out, saved in the background. It makes you think that he did not want the actual input that was utilized to be known. And Taylor is making sure that she gets into the record that this police officer or detective testified as an expert that in regards to this exhibit, which he misled the grand jury as to his expertise. It's really showing here, and it's important for her to get it into the record, the level of incompetency this particular witness or detective has. Because it does matter because, it's this misleads the judge when they're putting together also the warrants. So all of this is very important. And this right here lets the judge knows that there is some issues with her, because she's going to take this to a Franks hearing, and I'm going to play a little clip to let you know what a Franks hearing is and why it's going to be important, and why everything that she's putting into this particular testimony is going to come up. She's setting the groundwork.
Criminal defense lawyers often challenge the sufficiency of facts in an affidavit supporting a search warrant. But can a defendant challenge the veracity of such an affidavit? The United States Supreme Court considered that question in the 1978 case of Franks versus Delaware. Cynthia, a woman in Dover, was sexually assaulted by a man who broke into her home and threatened her with a knife. She reported to police that the assailant had worn a white knit thermal undershirt, a brown leather coat, and a dark knit cap. Investigators quickly focused on Jerome Franks, who'd been arrested regarding a different assault and who'd possibly incriminated himself in Cynthia's attack. In an affidavit seeking a warrant to search Franks' apartment, the investigators said that Franks' work supervisor told investigators that Franks regularly wore a white knit thermal undershirt, a brown leather jacket, and a dark green knit hat. The magistrate granted the warrant, and a search of Franks' apartment revealed evidence tying him to Cynthia's attack. Before trial, Franks moved to suppress the evidence from the search, claiming that his work supervisors would testify that they never spoke to the investigators. Franks also claimed that the affidavit mischaracterized what his supervisors did tell other officers. The trial court held that defendants couldn't challenge the truthfulness of statements in a search warrant affidavit. The court admitted the evidence from Franks' apartment, and he was convicted. The Delaware Supreme Court affirmed, agreeing that criminal defendants have no right to challenge the veracity of statements in search warrant affidavits. Because different state and federal courts disagreed on this issue, the United States Supreme Court granted cert.
In this next segment, you're going to hear Brett Payne discuss how he analyzed the information and the third-party person from the FBI interpreted it. And so, to me, this is the point where things get a little dicey for the prosecution. Right here is when I think a lot of things just got unraveled. The prosecution is really not saying anything. He remained quiet throughout this entire ordeal. The thing that's happening next is that the lead detective is now on record saying that he utilized the information from the FBI, which was this one agent called Balance, and now he's married to this particular story. I don't really think that the FBI is going to back his story up, because ultimately, if it is proven that that information was manipulated, the FBI is not going to want Balance to go on record and cause every case that he's been a part of, especially he just got off of testifying in the Daybell case with those two kids that got murdered and the man's wife. They're not going to want those things to have, those particular cases to have a reason for them to go back and question all testimony he has participated in. I just think that Moscow PD went rogue in this investigation. It's sad. But let me show you example once again and reiterate what this hearing can possibly be about. In this next clip, I believe this is the point where the prosecution lead detective set Bryan Kohberger case up for a Franks hearing. It just would be the next step. This is why.
It does. So you get these records and you take a look at them and you start writing your warrant. Is that right?
The records were provided to FBI Special Agent Balance, who began deciphering them. I'm not an expert in cell phone records.
That was the next thing I was going to ask you.
So, no, ma'am, I'm not. So, he was the one who was conveying that information to me so I could understand what it was.
So do you get the records and then get them to him somehow?
Yes, ma'am.
The records do they go directly to Balance?
I do not recall what the distribution was on the return itself. I do not recall that.
Are you and Balance exchanging emails about these records?
No, ma'am. Not that I remember.
How did you get them to them?
We were co-located. At the time, Detective Balance was at the Moscow Police Department about 30 feet down the hallway.
Did you notice that the prosecutor did not say a word throughout this hearing? I wanted you to listen to that segment. I know it was a little lengthy, but the reason why that is so important is because all the affidavits utilize cell phone information, and between the lead detective and Maury, they have demonstrated that they are incompetent. It seems like the data was manipulated, especially once you hear the little segment from the expert on the defense side of things. The problem is the timing of when the prosecution knew what and when. If they didn't know certain things until after Bryan Kohberger's arrest and they're trying to pretend they knew it before he was arrested, that's not going to work. Basically, that means that you arrested Bryan Kohberger with no basis in fact. And so everything that was acquired, when those search warrants will be suppressed. There's nothing to support his arrest. Basically, after that last hearing, that's the reason why the judge kept ping-ponging his head. He knows the judge was trying to play dumb, but that judge is not dumb. He realizes, Judge realizes that they're holding a man behind bars with no factual basis or evidence. To me, the judge is being, to me, wrong, in my opinion, to not force the prosecution to provide all of the evidence or documentation. The reason why they're hesitant in providing the documentation, it will definitely compromise their position in prosecuting them. And it can also put them before the board, and their law licenses can be in jeopardy too behind this. This is malicious prosecution, possibly, if this becomes true, allegedly. So that means Bryan Kohberger could probably sue the living daylights out of Moscow. It would be crazy. And then all of these news stations and all these other people that have been defaming his name, and people writing books and that are not based in fact, he's going to be scooping up all of that, and he's going to have a lot of attorneys who are going to want to support him in that effort, but he has to get past this first. And so just to reiterate how important this Franks hearing is, listen to this synopsis of the effect of a Franks hearing again.
The question I have is, what is the one thing I constantly ask you guys to do when you're facing a criminal case? Yes, that's to get the warrant application, not only for arrest, but any subsequent searches. And the reason I do that is because you have an opportunity for challenges. Because anytime there's an opportunity or you're having a police encounter, it sets up procedures. If those procedures are not followed properly, you have a right for a public trial. But Also, what if you discover that a police officer is a liar? What if he lied? Or she lied? Equal opportunity. You have this thing called a FRANKS hearing. A FRANKS hearing actually originates from FRANKS v. Delaware. Yeah, it's an actual case. Because this is one of the things where you can actually have evidence suppressed because there is no actual supported probable cause that's placed into the warrant application to get a warrant. Because anytime you find a lie or discrepancy or something of that nature, it allows for that evidence to be suppressed. This is something that a lot of you not going to like what I'm about to say, but it was found out in the Breonna Taylor case. It was found in one of the police officers' application for the actual entry that there was a discrepancy, a lie. And based on that lie, it required them to search a little bit deeper to find out what was going on. In the midst of finding that out, Kenneth Walker got paid, Breonna's parents got paid. So, keep that in mind. FRANKS v. Delaware allows you to check out the warrant application, and if the police officer misspeaks, lies, have a discrepancy. It allows for evidence that's being brought in that case to be suppressed.
Former Chief Fry had a responsibility and an obligation to make sure that the lead detective was on his job, making sure that they were investigating this crime thoroughly. But what we have come to see in the last couple of weeks has not been that. It is becoming very apparent that the detective possibly ran their investigation backwards. And that's very, very sad because it looks like evidence is missing or destroyed. And also, they have specifically left out information in order to create a specific type of picture, and this could lead to the whole case being thrown out, and on the grounds of incompetency is what I see. The thing is, with that being the case, it doesn't seem like they have enough evidence against Bryan Kohberger. They were just trying to pick up crumbs and make it fit.
Everything that I've seen to date is concerning to me because it's exculpatory. And I need to clarify this. When all of the records are produced and the dust settles and I have time to review it, I reserve the right to say, no, now I'm seeing everything. Here's what I'm seeing. Because of the piecemealing of the data, because of the missing data, because of data that I'm reviewing that is incredibly inaccurate, everything that is missing is absolutely in the benefit of the defense right now. There's other reports that I believe are missing that I can't tell you are in the benefit of Mr. Kohberger or in the benefit of the state. If I was contacted on December 1st by Moscow Police Department, there are things I would have absolutely said, you get this today. Do not hesitate, and especially come December 23rd. Not because of who it's helpful for, but because those documents are the only things we're going to get that's going to be able to allow us to interpret what it really means. Given the timing of these records, from what I can tell in the emails that were produced by Detective Mallory, these records were generated on the 23rd of December. It's when everything starts with probable cause statements. If I had to pick a time when the wheels fell off the wagon, that's the date. There are statements and there's assumptions made in the records that will never be supported by the data. There's a lot of claims that are said in these emails, and even the name files of the records are problematic. It does not represent what it's claimed to represent. It could be extremely impactful to either side. I'm not saying just in defending Mr. Kohberger. It could be extremely impactful in prosecuting Mr. Kohberger.
The problem's the problem, not what the data helps or hurts.
If incompetency was a scene, then this is it.
Detective Mallory, I'm putting in front of you what's labeled as Defendant's Exhibit O, and those are 2 certificates for training. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. The one that's from 2019, what did that cover?
That covered the use of the Cashapp software.
And what did the one in 2023 cover?
The second.
Your Honor, I move for admission of Defendant's O.
The objection?
No objection.
Okay, those are exhibit, no objection.
Well, the cast, I believe it was in 2019, and then I also did it again last year.
And the cast that you took in 2019, that was the ENDICAC, is that right?
That was developed again, correct?
And the cast that you took last year was October of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was the actual cast training.
They were both done by actual cast members. I'm not sure if one was sponsored by the other, but they were both performed by FBI cast members.
And Your Honor, if I can approach.
Yes, thank you.
Well, this is the boom area we're going to get into.
Detective Mallory, I'm putting in front of you what's labeled as Defendant's Exhibit O, and those are 2 certificates for training. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. The one that's from 2019, what did that cover?
That covered the use of the Cashapp software.
And what did the one in 2023 cover?
The second.
Your Honor, I move for admission of Defendant's O.
I don't understand what everybody else is doing on the board, but Ann Taylor and her crew, they playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers.
The objection?
No objection.
Okay, those are exhibit, no objection. Thank you.
The Detective Mallory, how many total hours do those certificates represent of cast training?
I apologize, I didn't look. It was a week long. It was actually a couple of days each time. 2 days a piece of
Do you need this?
but they. So the 2019 shows 24 hours. The 2023 says 16 hours.
Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
Detective, you've written some reports in this case, is that correct?
Yes.
I want to talk about 2 particular reports right now. One is from May the 5th of 2023. Do you recall that report, or should I bring a copy of that to you?
It'd be helpful to add a copy.
I can definitely do that.
I promise you, if the judge and the prosecution and his sidekick don't recognize that Ann Taylor came to represent her innocent client, I don't know what to say about him, because she spoke to the world loud and clear, and that's what's up. One of the things I wanted you to notice was that the judge was going back and forth, looking very attentive, taking notes and everything, because if he was asleep, he had his coffee in this particular session with both Maori and the other cop. The thing I noticed was that the judge realizes he ain't crazy, he ain't stupid. He realizes that in this situation, it looks like this whole case is in jeopardy because you have a PCA that has no support. And by law, if it doesn't have any support, then there's no case. I don't care what all they brought up. And then on top of everything else, even if the prosecution wanted to put this, to reissue a new warrant for BRYAN KOHBERGER, all this evidence that was illegally gained, he wouldn't be able to even use it. It's crazy. So the way I see it is that this hearing coming up this week is going to be pivotal to this case. These motions for suppression is coming, and you can bet your bottom dollar that the defense is definitely going to bring it, and they are going to be asking for their FRANKS hearing. And Bill, is not going to sit up here and lie in front of the court unless he wants to put his license on the line, because malicious prosecution is a thing. So let's see how it turns out this week. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. It's been a while, and I appreciate those who have supported me. Thank you for all of your support. And the couple of videos that I had utilized to share their thoughts on what a FRANKS hearing is, if you want to go see them, there will be a link in the description. And I look forward to chatting with you next time.